The world imagines Greenland as a place of emptiness, a vast white sheet stretched across the top of the planet. Silent, blank space on the map where nothing lives, nothing moves, nothing matters. But that is not the truth. Greenland is not empty, it is full. Full of force, full of history, full of a silence so deep it feels like a living presence. Standing here, you realize you are not looking at a landmass. You are looking at a boundary, a place where Earth's extremes are no longer a concept, but a daily reality. Greenland is a world that doesn't ask to be visited. It asks to be witnessed. You arrive, and the first thing you notice is how small you feel. Not because of the cold, not because of the wind, but because of the scale. The horizon does not behave like it does in other places. It stretches farther than the mind can hold. The sky seems closer, as if the atmosphere itself is pressing down to keep you grounded. And below you, the ice sheet extends like a frozen ocean, smooth and flawless from a distance. But when you get close, it becomes a landscape of broken surfaces, jagged ridges, and deep, mysterious crevasses. It looks like a planet that has been carved by time and weather into a shape that no human hand could ever recreate. Greenland is not simply cold, it is intense. The cold here is not something you feel only on the skin. It penetrates deeper into your thoughts, into the way you move, into the way your mind begins to slow down. It changes the rhythm of life. It makes every decision heavier. Every step more deliberate. In a place like this, even the simplest actions become meaningful. A sip of hot tea, a layer of clothing, a glance at the sky. The environment forces you to pay attention. It does not allow distraction. And then you realize that this silence, this stillness, is not empty. It is full of stories. Greenland is a record of the planet's history. The ice sheet here holds layers of time, compressed into a frozen archive. Scientists travel to Greenland not just to study ice, but to read the Earth's memory. Every layer of snow that falls becomes a new page. Every trapped bubble of air becomes a sentence from an ancient atmosphere. In the ice, you can find traces of volcanic eruptions, dust storms, and climate shifts from hundreds of thousands of years ago. The ice does not just exist, it remembers. The ice sheet is not just a geographic feature, it is a force. It shapes the land and the climate. It influences the ocean currents. It affects weather patterns across the world. When Greenland's ice melts, the water does not stay here. It flows into the ocean. That means the future of distant cities far away from this frozen land is tied to what happens here. Greenland's ice is not just local, It is global. It is part of the planet's heartbeat. And when the heartbeat changes, the world changes with it. Traveling through Greenland, you begin to see that the country is not a single landscape. It is a series of worlds. Coastal towns that seem almost tropical in their quietness, and interior ice plains that feel like another planet. Fjords so deep they seem to swallow the horizon, mountains rising like monuments from the sea. And everywhere, the constant presence of ice, moving slowly, patiently, without apology. Greenland does not rush. It does not hurry. It simply is. When you arrive in Nuuk, the capital, you might expect a city like any other, but Nuuk is not built to impress. It is built to endure. There are no towering skyscrapers, no sprawling highways, no grand boulevards. Instead, you see a cluster of buildings nestled against mountains, pressed between the sea and the land, like a small human heartbeat inside a vast, natural body. The colors stand out: red, blue, yellow, green. Bright paint on wooden houses, chosen not for aesthetics, but for survival. In winter, when the world turns white, color becomes a guide, a signal, a form of direction. It tells you where safety is. It tells you where home begins. The city feels quiet, but not empty. It feels like a place that has learned to speak softly. People here understand the weather before they look at a forecast. Plans are made around wind and light. The sun is a master that controls everything. In winter, darkness stretches for months. The city becomes a constellation of warm lights in the dark. In summer, the sun refuses to set. The world seems to stretch, and time begins to feel fluid, almost irrelevant. Days become long, nights disappear, and you find yourself losing track of the hours.
In Nuuk, modern life coexists with ancient rhythms. You might walk past a government office and then see fishing boats unloading their catch. Snowmobiles share narrow roads with cars. The sea is never far away, pressing in from almost every direction. On clear days, you can see whales surfacing near the shore, their dark backs rising and disappearing in the water, as if the ocean is reminding you that it is the true name of the city. Nuuk is a place where human ambition is quiet. It does not compete with nature. It simply fits into it.
The National Museum of Greenland is a quiet place, but it holds one of the most powerful artifacts in the Arctic. The Kilokitsak mummies, preserved naturally in the cold, lie in a display that feels almost like a private room in history. 3 women and a child, laid side by side, sealed by the cold. Their faces are calm, almost peaceful. Their clothing remains intact, fur and stitching visible after thousands of years. When you stand there, you realize you are not looking at a display. You are looking at a story of ordinary people, People who lived here long before modern technology, before maps, before the world understood Greenland's significance. These mummies are not a spectacle, they are proof. Proof of life lived in harmony with an environment that would have destroyed most of the world's inhabitants. Their calm faces show a quiet acceptance, a quiet resilience. The cold preserved them, but it also honored them. It froze their story in time so that the world could see it centuries later. Outside, Nuuk continues to move. The wind is always present, shaping the snow into frozen waves. The sea remains a constant force. The city is a place of adaptation. People do not fight the weather, they work with it. They use it, respect it, and learn from it. And in that respect, Nuuk becomes a symbol of Greenland itself. A reminder that survival is not about domination, it is about understanding. It is about living inside the conditions, not against them. From Nuuk, you travel north, deeper into the interior. The road to Kangerlussuaq is one of the few places where you can actually drive into Greenland's heart. Kangerlussuaq is not a town designed for comfort. It is a gateway, a transit point, a place where the human world meets the ice world. It was once a US military base built for strategy during the Cold War. Today, it serves as one of the main entry points for travelers and scientists. But its true significance is the road that leads to the ice sheet. It is one of the rare places where you can reach the ice by land. It is a rare bridge between two worlds.
As you drive, the landscape changes gradually. The tundra gives way to rocks. The rocks give way to snow. The air becomes thinner, cleaner, and colder. The silence grows deeper, and then, suddenly, the road ends. There is no dramatic sign, no grand entrance, just a simple endpoint where the ground becomes ice. The ice sheet begins as a line on the horizon, and then it expands, stretching out into a vast white plain that seems to go on forever. You step out of the vehicle and feel the cold strike you instantly, sharp and corrective, reminding you that you are a visitor here.
The ice sheet is older than any civilization on Earth. Some layers formed hundreds of thousands of years ago. The ice beneath your feet is a frozen archive of the planet's history. When you press your hand against it, you feel a shock of cold that is almost physical proof of time itself. The ice is not simply a surface, it is a living record. Nearby, the Russell Glacier stands like a massive wall of ice, rising high and stretching across the horizon. The glacier is not still, it moves slowly, pushing ice forward with relentless force. The surface is scarred with fractures, blue and gray streaks shaped by pressure and time. When pieces break away, the sound travels like thunder across the quiet. It is not a sound you can forget, it echoes in your bones. The glacier feels alive, almost unsettlingly so. The ice shifts constantly, and the air seems to hold its breath in anticipation of the next collapse. When a chunk breaks away and falls into the meltwater below, the impact sends ripples across the surface, and you realize that nothing here is truly still. Even the silence is moving. On the tundra near the route to Russell Glacier, you might see reindeer moving in small groups, their heads down as they search for moss and low vegetation. They don't rush. Their movement is slow and purposeful, conserving energy as if they understand that Greenland's summer is brief and precious. And then there are the Arctic foxes, appearing suddenly and disappearing just as quickly, their fur blending perfectly with the landscape. In summer, they are gray-brown, matching the rocks and dry ground. In winter, they turn pure white, becoming almost invisible against the snow. The wildlife here does not exist for tourists. It exists because it belongs. It has adapted to a world where silence usually wins. As you continue north, the landscape changes again. The ice sheet remains, but now the coastal world begins to appear. The towns here are small, and they feel like they are built in response to nature rather than in opposition to it. Sisimiut is one of Greenland's largest towns, and it is a place where modern life and traditional life coexist with ease. The town is connected by road, one of the few places in Greenland where you can travel overland between settlements. But even here, the tools of survival remain constant. Snowmobiles line up beside boats in the harbor. The rhythm of life changes with the seasons, not with technology. In winter, the snowmobiles become the lifeline. In summer, the boats take over. Fishing remains central to daily life. It is not a symbol, it is a necessity. In Sisimiut, you feel a sense of continuity. The town has grown, but it has not lost itself. The modern buildings do not feel like a break from tradition. They feel like an extension of it. The people here live with the understanding that Greenland is not a place where you can escape nature. It is a place where you must live within it. The town is proof that modern life in Greenland does not require abandoning the values that made survival possible in the first place. And then there is Ilulissat. Ilulissat is not just a town. It is a place where the ice comes to life. The name Ilulissat means icebergs, and the town lives up to it. Icebergs drift past the coastline day and night, some taller than buildings, others smooth and sculpted by time and water. The houses are painted in muted colors, standing out against the white and blue landscape. There are no roads connecting Ilulissat to other towns. Travel happens by boat or by air, or not at all. The town exists in a state of constant motion, shaped by light and weather.
In summer, the sun barely sets. Time stretches until sleep feels optional. In winter, darkness closes in and the windows glow softly against the cold. The people of Ilulissat move carefully, conserving energy, respecting the conditions. Tourists come to photograph the ice, often stunned by its scale. Locals pass by with grocery bags, children trailing behind, unmoved by what others call extraordinary. Fishing remains central. Work continues. Life goes on. Ilulissat does not perform for visitors. It does not change itself to meet expectations. It simply exists, letting the ice define the horizon and the silence fill the gaps between sounds.
The Surmek-Kujalek Glacier, also known as Jakobshavn Glacier, is one of the fastest flowing glaciers in the world. It advances toward the sea at a rate that can reach tens of meters per day. This constant movement pushes enormous volumes of ice into the ocean, making it one of the main sources of icebergs in the northern hemisphere. The calving here is frightening in scale. Massive slabs break away from the glacier's front, sometimes as tall as high-rise buildings. When they crash into the water, the impact can be strong enough to register on seismographs far away. The sound is like thunder, a deep, violent release of energy that reminds you that nature is not gentle here. It is powerful, unpredictable and completely indifferent to human presence.
The area around Ilulissat and Disco Bay is part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, recognized not only for its visual beauty, but for its importance in climate research. Scientists track the glacier to understand polar melt and its direct impact on global sea levels. The icebergs born here carry compressed air bubbles from thousands of years ago, tiny time capsules preserving traces of ancient atmospheres. Disco Bay itself is a vast stretch of water south of the Nusuak Peninsula. It acts like a staging ground and often a graveyard for giant icebergs. Because parts of the bay are relatively shallow, these frozen giants can become trapped, forming a silent maze of ice. The shapes vary wildly: fortress-like blocks, jagged spires, strange domes carved by wind and water. The ice shifts from bright white in sunlight to deep blue where it is compressed and dense. When summer arrives, the bay becomes alive. Humpback whales migrate in from warmer waters, drawn by abundant food carried by currents. They breach and slap their tails between the ice, creating a vivid contrast, living power moving through a world of silent, drifting ice. For local Inuit communities, Disco Bay is more than scenery. It is a vital fishing ground, a place where stories of human adaptation have been passed down for generations. The bay is a reminder that Greenland is not simply a place of dramatic landscapes. It is a place of deep human connection to the environment. The people here do not view the ice as a threat. They view it as a neighbor, a provider, a force to respect. Greenland's story changes again. The landscape becomes more varied. You begin to see green valleys, patches of fertile soil, and small villages that look almost like something from a different world. This is where the Norse history becomes visible. The ruins are a reminder that Greenland has always been a place of both presence and disappearance, a place where communities rise and fall, shaped by the environment. And then, not far from the ruins, the village of Igaliku offers a different story. Igaliku sits in a green valley at the end of a fjord. The soil is surprisingly fertile, and the landscape feels almost like rural Scotland. The village is built on the site of Gardar, once a Norse bishopric and a religious center. The modern story began in the 18th century when a Norwegian trader and his Inuit wife settled here and raised cattle. They reused red sandstone from the ruins of Gardar to build early homes, creating a warm, earthy architecture that still stands out against snow-covered mountains. Today, Igaliku is a small farming village centered on sheep. The life here moves slowly, guided by seasons and soil. It is a place where time seems to slow down, where the rhythm of life is shaped by the land itself. Igaliku shows how human communities can renew themselves. On the remains of a lost Viking world, another community grew, learning to live with the land as shared ground, keeping a pocket of green alive in one of the harshest places on Earth. In the south, Greenland also reveals its geological wealth. Narsak, a town in southern Greenland, is known for rare minerals and gemstones. The land here is fertile, and the farms produce sheep and vegetables, but the true value lies beneath the surface. The region contains deposits of minerals like rubies and rare stones such as tugtupite, known for its unique color and glow under ultraviolet light. The geology here began billions of years ago through complex processes that created magma intrusions filled with hundreds of mineral types. Narsak feels like a place where value is not only visible,
but hidden deep inside ancient rock. The town's colorful wooden houses line the fjord, and the landscape becomes a striking contrast between green pastures and blue icebergs drifting offshore. Narsak is a reminder that Greenland is not only ice, it is also earth, and beneath that earth lies a history that spans billions of years. As you move further south, the fjords become more dramatic. The landscape rises into vertical granite towers, polished by glaciers over millions of years. Tassermiut Fjord, often called the Patagonia of the North, is a place where the mountains seem to rise straight out of the water, reaching heights over 1,000 meters. Peaks like Katila, Ulamasuak, and Nalumasortok cut a sharp skyline, pushing human limits. The granite is dense and hard, creating smooth vertical faces that climbers dream about. But Tassermiut is not just a climbing destination, it is a place of intense quiet. The silence is broken only by meltwater waterfalls spilling from high cliffs, or the sudden splash of salmon in clear water. The fjord feels like a separate world, ruled by stone and weather.
And then, in the far south, you find one of Greenland's most surprising treasures, natural hot pools. Untouched is a place where warm water rises from deep underground, heated under pressure before reaching the surface. The pools hold a steady temperature around 37 to 38 degrees Celsius, even when the air is freezing. Unlike Iceland's volcanic hot springs, Untoucht's warmth comes from deep geothermal pressure. For centuries, Inuit communities have used these pools as a rare place of rest and recovery. Even today, it remains a quiet stop where people can soak in natural warmth while watching icebergs drift through the fjord. It is a moment of balance between Earth's heat and the Arctic's cold, a moment that feels almost symbolic of Greenland itself, a place where extremes coexist.
In the east, the landscape changes again. The fjords become deeper, the mountains sharper, and the sense of isolation grows stronger. Tasiilaq, the largest town in eastern Greenland, sits on Ammassalik Island, deep inside a fjord ringed by steep, jagged peaks. The mountains form a natural bowl that shields the town from the harshest ocean winds. The bright wooden houses climb the rocky slopes, creating a striking contrast against cold gray stone. Life here moves on a different rhythm. With around 2,000 residents, Tasiilaq is the cultural and administrative heart of eastern Greenland. The people here have lived with long isolation, shaping their language and customs. Before European explorers arrived in the late 1800s, the Ammassalik people lived largely cut off for centuries. Winter is long and severe, turning the fjord into solid ice, where dog sleds remain essential for connecting nearby settlements. In summer, snow retreats and wildflowers bloom at the edges of town. The life here is brief and intense, wedged between granite towers.
East Greenland is also home to some of the most spectacular iceberg traffic in the world. The fjord system known as Scoresby Sund is the largest and deepest on the planet. Its branching structure reaches more than 350 kilometers inland, like the roots of an enormous tree. The fjord system drops to depths over 1,500 meters, holding an immense volume of water and drifting ice. The geology here is a show of Earth's long history. Dark basalt cliffs to the south, layered sedimentary mountains with vivid bands of color to the north. Black rock, white snow, and deep blue water combine into a landscape that feels severe and perfectly still. Scoresby Sund collects countless icebergs released from glaciers draining the interior. Ice. Many become trapped in narrow channels or drift slowly with currents, turning the fjord into a shifting desert of ice that changes from day to day. Along the thin strips of tundra near the coast, Arctic life persists. Muskox, reindeer, seabirds adapted to short summers and long cold. The silence is often broken by the echo of ice collapsing from cliffs or winds screaming through deep valleys. For explorers, Scoresby Sund represents the extreme edge of Earth's scale, space and distance pushed beyond modern expectations.
Further north, in the far reaches of Greenland, you find places that feel like the end of the world. Qaanaaq, also known as Thule, lies above 77 degrees north, one of the northernmost inhabited places on Earth. Here, the environment is extreme. Months of polar night, then a summer of midnight sun. Qaanaaq feels like a human outpost set against barren tundra and a frozen ocean. The modern settlement history includes upheaval. Inuit families were relocated in 1953 to make room for a military base, shaping a close-knit community with a deep Arctic identity. Here, Greenland sled dogs are not a tourist attraction. They're the only legs capable of carrying hunters across frozen fjords to reach food. This ancient breed is tough, enduring, built to handle brutal cold. Each dog knows its place in the team. Hierarchy keeps order. Endurance keeps everyone alive. The bond between hunters and dogs grows from daily care and shared risk. In this cold, machines fail. Dogs keep moving. Greenland also protects the breed. In parts of the north and east, other dog breeds are restricted to preserve the sled dog's purity and survival instincts. The sound of paws pounding snow and runners sliding over ice becomes the signature sound of Qaanaaq. And beyond the settlements lies a world that is almost untouched by human presence. Northeast Greenland National Park is the largest national park on Earth, covering almost 1 million square kilometers. It is larger than many countries and almost completely wild. There is no permanent civilian population, only scientists and the Danish Sirius Patrol. This is where human control ends and nature's rules take over. Polar bears roam the pack ice, hunting seals with minimal human disturbance. Across ice thousands of years old, towering granite walls and resilient communities, Greenland reveals itself as a land where geological time and human life overlap. A land where isolation is not a barrier, but a protective shell preserving some of the purest parts of Earth. The people of Greenland have built lives here not by changing the environment, but by learning its language. They understand the wind, the ice, the sea, and the light. They understand that survival is not about resisting nature, but about respecting it. The ice is melting, the world is changing, and Greenland stands as a witness to both. The glaciers calve more often, the ice sheet thins, the sea rises. The consequences reach far beyond this island. The melting ice here will affect cities thousands of miles away. Greenland is not a distant place. It is connected to the entire planet. The ice is not just a landscape, it is a global system, and as it changes, the world changes with it.
Greenland is not a place you conquer, it is a place you learn to respect. Here, silence is not emptiness, it is presence, it is history, it is warning. The ice is ancient, but it is also fragile. The landscape is majestic, but it is vulnerable. Greenland is a reminder that nature still holds power, that the world is still alive, and that we must listen before the silence becomes a memory.
In the end, the true journey is not the distance traveled, it is the understanding gained. Greenland is not a destination, it is a story of ice and wind, of people and survival, of a planet that still has wild places, still has ancient forces, still has a truth that cannot be ignored. Keep that sense of wonder alive. Remember the silence, remember the ice, and remember that the edge of the map is not the end of the world. It is where the world reveals its most powerful secrets. Like if Greenland's silence spoke to you. Subscribe for weekly epic journeys. Comment which Greenland place first. Watch next, Antarctica's Hidden World.